What should have been an ordinary day for a family in Arkansas turned into a nightmare that no parent can ever fully recover from. An 8-month-old baby boy named Elijah Flowerday lost his life while under the care of a babysitter, a woman now facing the most serious criminal charge allowed under Arkansas law. According to investigators with the Little Rock Police Department, the tragic events unfolded on the morning of December 30th, shortly after 11 a.m. Emergency responders were called to a residence on Clifton Drive after reports that an infant was not breathing. When officers arrived, they found Elijah unresponsive. Despite urgent medical efforts, the baby was rushed to Arkansas Children's Hospital, where doctors pronounced him dead. Police documents reveal disturbing details. Detectives say the caregiver, Aaron Sauls, was operating an in-home daycare at the time. Medical examinations later determined that Elijah had suffered a skull fracture along with multiple brain hemorrhages, injuries that medical experts say are consistent with severe blunt force trauma. Investigators allege that Sauls admitted to striking the infant's head against a hardwood floor multiple times during a diaper change. According to police, she claimed she became frustrated during the moment. That alleged admission led prosecutors to file a capital murder charge, a charge reserved for the most extreme cases in Arkansas. Capital murder in this state carries severe consequences. Under Arkansas law, when the victim is a child under the age of 14, prosecutors are permitted to seek capital charges, regardless of whether the crime involved other aggravating factors. Because Elijah was just 8 months old and completely defenseless, the law allows for the possibility of life imprisonment or even the death penalty, though officials have not yet stated whether they intend to pursue that option. At this stage, Sauls has entered a not guilty plea and the case remains in its early phases. Authorities stress that all allegations will ultimately be evaluated in court. Still, the details outlined in the arrest report have shaken the local community and parents across the country. Photos shared online by Elijah's family show a smiling baby with bright eyes, images that now serve as painful reminders of a life taken far too soon. Loved ones describe him as joyful and deeply loved, making the sudden loss even more devastating. As word of the arrest spread, former parents who had used Saul's childcare services began reacting with shock and disbelief. One mother posted on social media that her own children had attended the in-home daycare months earlier. She wrote that while nothing alarming had happened during her children's time there, she ultimately removed them due to reliability concerns. She described being overwhelmed with grief upon learning about Elijah's death. For Elijah's parents, however, the pain is unimaginable. Instead of celebrating milestones like first words or first steps, they are now preparing for a funeral. Friends and family members have rallied around them, trying to provide comfort during a time that words cannot heal. As the legal process begins, investigators say they are continuing to review evidence and interview anyone who may have relevant information. Authorities are urging anyone with direct knowledge related to the case to contact law enforcement rather than speculate online. This case, still unfolding, has already left a permanent mark on the Arkansas community and raised serious questions about childcare safety, accountability, and trust.
As the investigation continues, the focus has shifted not only to the criminal charges, but also to the broader impact this tragedy has had on families who entrusted their children to in-home daycare providers. For many parents, the case has triggered fear, guilt, and an overwhelming sense of betrayal. One parent who previously used Aaron Saul's childcare services publicly shared her emotional reaction, saying she could not stop thinking about the situation. She explained that her children had attended the daycare briefly earlier in the year. While she did not witness any abuse, she eventually decided to pull her children out, citing concerns about reliability. Learning about Elijah's death left her devastated, haunted by what-if thoughts that many parents now find impossible to escape. But no one has been more vocal or more heartbroken than Elijah's family. Elijah's father, Isaac Flowerday, addressed the public in an emotional message shared online. He confirmed his son's passing and thanked people for their prayers and support. At the same time, he made a clear request: stop sharing details on social media. Isaac warned that rumors and misinformation could harm the investigation and potentially interfere with justice. He urged anyone with actual evidence or first-hand knowledge to contact authorities directly. His message reflected a family struggling not only with grief, but also with the weight of public attention during an already unbearable time. To help cover funeral expenses and other costs, a GoFundMe campaign was created for the Flowerday family. The fundraiser quickly gained support, raising thousands of dollars in a short period. Organizers explained that the funds would assist with funeral arrangements, time off work, and grief counseling as the family attempts to cope with the sudden loss of their baby. The campaign description paints a heartbreaking picture: parents forced to bury a child who had barely begun his life. Friends say Elijah was deeply loved and brought light into every room he entered. Now that light has been extinguished, leaving a silence that cannot be filled. Beyond the emotional devastation, the case has ignited renewed discussion around in-home daycare regulations. Many parents rely on such services because they are affordable and flexible, especially for working families. However, experts warn that not all in-home childcare providers are licensed or properly regulated, increasing the risk of unsafe conditions. Legal analysts point out that while licensed daycare centers must follow strict guidelines, smaller in-home operations often exist in a gray area. Some operate legally but without oversight, while others function entirely without state approval. This lack of monitoring can make it difficult for parents to fully assess the safety of the environment. As public concern grows, child advocacy groups are urging parents to ask detailed questions before enrolling their children anywhere. Licensing status, caregiver-to-child ratios, safety procedures, and emergency plans are all factors experts say should never be overlooked. For Elijah's family, none of these discussions will bring their son back. Their focus remains on honoring his memory and ensuring that justice is served. Meanwhile, the community watches closely as the legal process unfolds, hoping that accountability and change will follow. To better understand the broader implications of cases like this one, legal experts who specialize in childcare injury and wrongful death say these tragedies often reveal systemic weaknesses that go unnoticed until it's too late. Attorney Russell Button, whose firm handles daycare-related injury cases, explains that parents in these situations are rarely negligent. Most are working hard to provide for their families and trust caregivers with their most precious responsibility. When that trust is broken, the emotional damage can be lifelong. Button says one of the first red flags parents should look for is licensing. In many states, in-home daycare providers can choose whether to become licensed. While licensing requires additional paperwork and inspections, it also ensures minimum safety standards. Providers who avoid licensing may do so to escape oversight, which experts say should raise serious concerns. Another major issue is caregiver overload. In small, in-home settings, one adult may be responsible for multiple infants and toddlers at once. Button explains that this creates an environment where stress can quickly escalate. Without backup support or safety systems, overwhelmed caregivers may make dangerous decisions. Surveillance cameras are another important safeguard. Fixed cameras with audio, experts say, not only protect children but also caregivers, providing transparency and accountability. The absence of such systems makes it harder to verify what happens behind closed doors. According to Button, many tragic daycare cases follow a similar pattern: unlicensed operations, too many children, no insurance, and no emergency backup plan. While none of these factors excuse abuse, they significantly increase the risk of harm.
When asked whether tragedies like Elijah's death can be prevented entirely, experts acknowledge that no system is perfect. However, they insist that stronger oversight and informed decision-making can drastically reduce risks. Button emphasizes that frustration is never an excuse. Every caregiver, parent, or babysitter will experience stress at some point. The difference lies in how that stress is managed. Walking away, calling for help, or placing a child safely in a crib are all appropriate responses. Violence is not. The allegations in this case, if proven true, represent a complete failure of responsibility, experts say. An infant cannot defend himself, communicate distress, or escape danger. That makes the caregiver's duty of care absolute. From a legal standpoint, families affected by such tragedies often pursue justice through multiple avenues. Criminal cases focus on punishment and accountability. State agencies may revoke licenses or issue permanent bans. Civil lawsuits, when possible, aim to expose unsafe practices and prevent similar incidents from happening again. Even when financial compensation is limited, attorneys say civil cases play an important role in creating public awareness. They help ensure that cases are not forgotten and that patterns of negligence are documented. For parents watching this case unfold, experts urge vigilance, not fear. Asking hard questions, trusting instincts, and refusing to settle for vague answers can make a difference. As Elijah's case moves forward, it serves as a painful reminder of what can happen when trust, oversight, and safety fail all at once. As Aaron Sauls remains in custody awaiting further court proceedings, the legal journey ahead is expected to be long and emotionally taxing for everyone involved. Prosecutors must now determine how aggressively they will pursue the case, including whether they will seek the harshest possible penalties allowed under Arkansas law. Capital murder cases require extensive evidence, expert testimony, and careful legal strategy. Investigators will analyze medical reports, interview witnesses, and examine Saul's background, including her childcare operation and any prior complaints. Defense attorneys, meanwhile, are expected to challenge the alleged confession and scrutinize every detail of the investigation. Separate from the criminal case, state childcare agencies are likely conducting their own review. If Sauls was operating without proper licensing, that finding alone could result in permanent restrictions preventing her from ever caring for children again. These administrative investigations often continue quietly, but can carry lasting consequences. For Elijah's parents, the pursuit of justice is only one part of a much larger struggle. Grief does not follow a courtroom schedule. Friends say the family is taking each day moment by moment, leaning on loved ones and faith to survive the unimaginable. Experts note that cases involving infant victims often resonate deeply with the public because they highlight vulnerability in its purest form. Babies depend entirely on adults for protection. When that protection fails, the sense of loss extends beyond one family to the entire community. Advocates hope this case will lead to renewed attention on childcare standards, especially in unregulated environments. Some are calling for stricter laws, mandatory licensing, and increased inspections for in-home daycares. Others emphasize education, making sure parents know what questions to ask and what warning signs to watch for. Ultimately, no law or policy can undo what happened to Elijah. His life, though brief, has already left an impact that may shape conversations around childcare safety for years to come. As the case progresses, authorities continue to urge the public to avoid speculation and respect the family's privacy. Justice, they say, depends on facts, not rumors. For now, a community mourns a baby boy who should still be alive, a family grieves a future stolen from them, and a legal system begins the slow process of determining responsibility for a tragedy that never should have happened.